Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sportcat Daily Gazette. I am Glenn Sportcat Jackson, here to provide you with, well, some news, weather, insight into the world from the Sportcat point of view. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you wherever you are. I understand we are live in Radio X in Australia, so it would be good morning to you, or it's a good night. I don't know. It's late there. So, welcome and thank you for listening in while you're up, letting us tickle your ears. We're also live on Yerg's Radio and Rainbow Radio. We want to send out some words to Yerg's for allowing us to tickle your ears there. So, and he allows us to give a little bit different perspective. So, hello, Chris. Good afternoon to you, sir. And let's see, who else do I want to thank? Radio X Australia, good morning, good day, afternoon. We got Rainbow Radio, and we got Yergzen. I think that's it for the moment. And of course, overnight, Pine Island FM in Florida. Thank you for allowing us. Hey, Shay, welcome. Glad to see you, dear. Glad to see you up this early. Goodness. So yeah, we want to welcome everybody and thank you. I encourage everybody because we're trying to get monetized and we are so close. And if you can't see me, I'm holding up just two little teeny tiny fingers. We are so close to being monetized. It would be great if I could get you to come over to YouTube. I've got a face for radio, so you don't want to see me. You want to see my co-hosts when they're on Wednesday nights and Monday nights. Yeah, come over and find me on YouTube, the Para R Normal. That's three words, Para, P-A-R-A-R, Normal, guys. And I spell it with a Z as in zebra. She is in emergency training this week to be a lifesaver. So she will be a true first responder working in the communication center, telling the cops where to go. So good place for a holster sniffer to be. So, all right. So, and she knows I'm just giving her grief. Welcome, Cheyenne. I hope you do well in your class. I'm sure you will. As always, you exceed at everything. So she doesn't want me calling her holster sniffer. Well, all right. So a hose sniffer. I mean, come on now. You either like cops or firemen, and nobody likes a paramedic. So. Oh, mercy. All right. Well, yes, we thank her for her service because she is actually working in public safety. And she is doing something that few people can do. Dispatch is I always hit that button, is a very difficult position. All right, so this headline needs to be updated. This comes to us from the AP. It says in Lithuania, 3 U.S. soldiers, but we know now, or we've learned because this comes to us from Fort Stewart, Georgia. WSB just broke that they have found the 4th soldier. So we can update this headline to say in Lithuania, 4 U.S. soldiers found dead in armored vehicle is the headline, or should be the headline. So for the U.S. Army soldiers who went missing in Lithuania, they are on a mission. I forget the name of the mission, to basically train to keep Russia in check. So it's just a training mission. The vehicle we'll continue on. So they have been found dead in their armored vehicle that was pulled from a swampy area Monday, according to the U.S. Army in Africa Command. The bodies of the soldiers were recovered after a massive 6-day effort, and it may be 7 now over there, I'm not sure, by U.S., Polish, and Lithuanian armed forces and authorities to dig the M88 Hercules vehicle out of a peat bog. And I'm not sure exactly what a peat bog is, but it sounds like basically a swamp. So let me move that over there real quick. All right. Okay, I'll get to that too today, Cheyenne. So I'm not sure what a peat bog is, but yeah, I got it, Shay. I will try and get that in today. So they've recovered them in the actual, well, 3 apparently were in the vehicle and 1 was outside the vehicle. And they were doing a tactical training exercise when they went missing. Apparently they went off course. This vehicle they're in is an extremely heavy, think of basically a tow truck that would tow tractor and trailers that's heavily armored to tow and lift tanks. So think of that. That's what it is. So the identities, of course, have not been released because, well, they have to notify their family out of Fort Stewart, and they're calling them dog-faced soldiers. That is not a slap at them at all. That's actually a reference back to WW2. So we stand and grieve with the families and loved one of these three extraordinary dog-faced soldiers during this unimaginable time. That's from Major General Christopher Norrie, the 3rd Infantry Division commander. He's probably a tank division commander. So the search wasn't finished till everybody's home. Well, we just found out that is the case, and they want to thank the gratitude for all the people working around the cover to work and do search and recovery. So they lifted this armored tow truck out of the vehicle, and apparently it was in about 15 feet of water, and they used ground penetrating radar and other type of vehicles to find it. Then they had to basically shore. So in other words, they called it the Navy Seabees is what they actually did. They had to actually shore. So they had to actually, as they went along to get the vehicles, they had to put in pylons and establish solid ground for the rescuers to operate on, because they're calling it basically a slurry. And then they're pumping water out as quick as they can. And then they have to send in specialized U.S. Navy divers. And the divers were saying they were going through thick layers of mud, clay, and sediment with zero visibility. That is a very difficult job for a rescue diver. The 63-ton vehicle Sunday evening went missing, and they wanted to basically, they're going to try, well, they did lift it up out of the bog and mud, but they had to shore up the area around it so they could get vehicles close enough, because you're going to need a hydraulic arm to go over, possibly two, and tie it off on each end and probably lift in unison. And as you're pulling it or towing it, you're probably going to lift it and then tow it slowly out of the bog with one of them. It's going to be it was a very tedious operation. Once they got it in the air, they didn't want to set it back down, because at that time they were still missing the 4th soldier. So once they got the vehicle up and lifted, they started what they call a grid search. And that means basically they divide the peat bog into a big grid square, and they go square by square checking it off until they found our 4th soldier. And we know now that they have. That soldier was located outside of the vehicle. So we're not sure what, man, I just keep hitting wrong buttons today. We're not sure what happened. 63 tons. Yes, 63 tons and zero visibility. It is extremely rough. And I'll show you a picture of what this vehicle looks like here. I got this. Well, hold on a minute. This is just a little bit of a different article. You can see how they used a earth mover to pull it up with chains attached to either end. I thought they were going to use two separate ones, but they must have decided to go with that. Yeah, they're from Fort Stewart, Georgia, and the recovery of 4 soldiers, a huge experts, engineering search teams, specialized search teams for swamps, because that is a specialty. And they had experts as far away from Thailand helping them in some of this, because they have more experience in searching in that type of area. It was 15 foot deep of water. And let's see, they have communication links with the other dive team members in Hawaii that regularly work in mud and swamps. So they're communicating with basically Emergency Operations Center in Hawaii to the divers, telling them what to do and how to do it. So you can see here the Navy diver, he is basically encased in a steel suit, so to speak. I mean, that's not really a great way of putting it, but it's a very large, cumbersome suit. And it's obviously there's a line supplying his air and communication, and they're attached to him. So if something goes astray, they can get him out as well. So you see there him going back in. And let's get a look at this vehicle. This is a very, very large vehicle, and its whole purpose is basically towing tanks. And tanks weigh upwards of 80 tons in today's warfare. So it's designed to do that. Supposedly in 23, it was still in, quote, testing phase, and it has been now out, but they were still testing it. And I'm going to guess they were testing it on grounds that they had not used before, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense because in Georgia, there are a lot of wet, muddy, boggy areas. So I don't know. They may have just gotten lost. And once they got into the 15 feet of water, they couldn't back out. And one of the soldiers probably exited the vehicle to try and help, but was caught up. They described it yesterday as almost quicksand. So maybe got caught up in it as the actual tank was sinking. So our thoughts and prayers go out to the soldiers from Fort Stewart, Georgia. So, all right. Our next headline comes to us from the Daily Mail, which is out of the UK. And they're talking about Mr. Putin. And apparently Putin has now, he didn't like the Trump being pissed off. So he's now saying he's putting the slap down on the Ukraine peace deal. And he now has an entirely new set of demands. So this comes out at 9 a.m. Eastern. So fresh into Washington, Russia says it's giving serious consideration to U.S. proposals on ending the war in Ukraine, but cannot accept President Donald Trump's current peace deal and has issued a fresh set of demands. Moscow wants the U.S. to take into account what it regards as the root cause of the conflict. A Russian diplomat was quoted as saying by state media on Tuesday, "We take the models and solutions proposed by the Americans very seriously, but we can't accept it all in its current form," according to Deputy Foreign Minister Sergio Ryabkov. And I'm probably saying that wrong. As far as we can see, there is no place in them today for our main demand, namely to solve the problem related to the root cause of this conflict. He was cited as telling the magazine International Affairs in an interview. It is completely absent, and that must be overcome, he was quoted as saying. Trump scolded Putin and said that he was pissed off at him. Yeah, it's a war of words. And he was frustrated in the continuing fighting in the war, and he wants it to stop swiftly. Trump insisted progress was being made in negotiations, but that he would consider imposing further sanctions to put pressure on Moscow. So Moscow wants it to take into account what it regards as the root cause. And, well, if you go back, the root cause is they didn't want stuff on their doorstep, just like us. Remember the Bay of Pigs? So he also accused Zelensky of trying to back out of a deal with the U.S. on access to Ukraine mineral sources. Well, we've learned today that he has new terms for an agreement he's already signed. Interesting. Ukraine has conducted first round consultations with the U.S. on what he said was the latest version of the mineral deal. Ukraine Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha said Tuesday, Putin has effectively refused a U.S. proposal for an immediate and full 30-day halt in the fighting, despite Trump's prodding. Also, partial ceasefire in the Black Sea that could allow safer shipment has fallen foul of conditions imposed by Kremlin negotiators. Russia is holding out on a Black Sea deal in order to stall efforts towards a general ceasefire and extract additional concessions from the West, according to an assessment late Monday by the Institute for the Study of War, a Washington-based think tank. We actually have a study of war. Interesting. So Zelensky was blunt in his analysis of the developments in the address late Sunday. Moscow blatantly makes a mockery of our partners' efforts to advance peace agenda, he said. Putin previously has ruled out a temporary break in hostilities, saying that it would only benefit Ukraine and Western allies by letting them replenish their arsenals. He has insisted that Moscow wants a comprehensive agreement that would ensure a lasting settlement. Trump has signaled that he could consider new oil sanctions on Russia, but Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov indicated Tuesday that a breakthrough in negotiations isn't imminent. The issues that we are discussing in connection with Ukraine's settlement are quite complex, and they require a lot of additional efforts, he said in a conference with reporters. Meanwhile, deadly attacks continue, and they are gearing up for spring campaigns in the war attrition of roughly 1,000 kilometers, which is a 620-mile front line. So overnight, Russia fired no drones at Ukraine for the first time in more than 5 months, according to authorities. But the head of the counter disinformation branch of Ukraine security detected no change in Russian strategy. For now, this means nothing, he said. Ukraine did claim to have shot down 2 cruise missiles launched by Russia overnight to attack southeastern Ukraine. And officials in Oblast did report drone attacks against the region overnight, claiming limited damage. Ukraine has showed restraint in its strikes on Russia, with reports of just 3 drones being downed over the Byrsinsk region. Ugh. Russia's defense ministry accused Ukraine of launching new drone attacks on energy facilities in Russia's Belgorod region, in Russia-controlled part of Ukraine's, I can't pronounce that, Zavzhoria region. Ukraine's European backers say that they will support Kyiv's efforts to defeat Russia's invasion. Putin is getting military help from North Korea and Iran. China, too, has given diplomatic support to Russia and has provided economic help through trade in energy and consumer goods. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, on a visit to Moscow, was quoted as saying Tuesday that certain results have been achieved in Washington's attempt to stop a war with Russia, and USA relations with Trump have improved. They've improved under Trump. He said in a Russian state news interview, RIA Now, that Beijing supports the goal of a fair, long-term binding peace agreement, accepting to all parties involved. Wang was to meet with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov. He's also expected to meet later with Putin. All right, so that comes to us from, I think it's the Daily Mail. Hold on, let's make sure. I'll make sure I got the right source so that you can go find it. It is the Daily Mail. And Chris says, it's so arrogant for anyone in Washington to consider themselves capable of being included in a think tank. Well, I think it's kind of arrogant because are there kids on the line over there? I mean, that's just, you don't have any skin in the game. So you're a bean counter, I guess is the best way to say it. All right, so we know that in Diego Garcia, we have sent 2 battle groups, which has got the complete Air Force complement to 2 U.S. aircraft carriers. There's a rumor among the military websites saying there could be a 3rd headed to the region. I think that would be a bit overkill, but they also say that they discovered that Iran has more bombs than we initially thought. So the B-2 bombers could punish Iran if a strike order is given, because Iran is sending strong messages saying that it can attack Diego Garcia, and it's only 2,400 miles, and, well, that's within their striking distance. So if they took out the B-2 bombers, that would be basically a first strike attack and could be very bad for us. But if we launch the attack, massive B-2 stealth bombers are very, very significant because they have a high altitude bombing possibilities and they are within easy strike range of the Middle East. So the Trump administration is not likely to simply attack Iran with B-28s, B-2Ss, unprovoked. The president has been clear that Iran will be held accountable for its direct support of Houthi attacks on U.S. warships in the Red Sea. There is a long and documented history of Iran providing weapons and financial support to the Houthi rebels. This Yemen-based insurgent group has been attacking U.S. commercial shipping in the Red Sea for several years following the start of the Israel-Hamas war. During the Biden administration, the Pentagon policy was to, at times, attack Houthi launchers with airstrikes, but primarily use defensive forces to track and intercept Houthi drones. Deck-mounted guns and fighter jets launched air-to-air weapons all successfully destroyed incoming Houthi missiles, preventing an actual hit on a U.S. warship. Several commercial ships, however, were hit by Houthi attacks, and U.S. Navy sailors helped rescue crew members on several occasions. At the very least, the movement of the B-2s is within easy striking range, sends a strong message of deterrence that indeed the Trump administration is quite serious about its intent to hold Iran responsible for supporting the Houthis. The Iran support for the Houthis is well documented in significant 2024 research provided by the Pentagon's Defense Intelligence Agency. There you go, Chris. That's another one. Defense Intelligence, called Seized at Sea, Iranian Weapons Smuggled to the Houthis. This specifies and provides photographic document of many Iranian weapons being deliberately smuggled to the Houthis. B-2 attacks on Iran? Well, there are several potential scenarios where the U.S. might send B-2s to attack Iran. As highly stealthy, high-altitude bombers, they're designed to fly undetected high above Iranian air defenses and use precision weaponry to destroy specific targets from the air. As a broadband stealth platform, the B-2 is intended to elude low-frequency surveillance radar and high-frequency engagement radar so that the enemy radars and defenses have no idea that the attacking plane is even there. Therefore, the B-2s can target a series of limited strikes, hit several high-value targets, or launch the beginning of a massive air attack. Given their altitude and stealth, B-2s most likely would be among the first air assets used to strike Iran. They can open up a, quote, air corridor for less stealthy aircraft by destroying air defenses within a specific envelope of airspace. Well, we see that Iran was already attacked by Israel, and some of their air defenses are down. So Iran operates some Russian-built air defense systems, such as the S-400s, yet it is unclear whether they would be positioned to see, track, and hit B-2 Russian air defenses, or hit a B-2. Russian air defenses increasingly use multi-node signal digital networking technology and RF sensors that can operate on longer ranges and greater number of frequencies. That's a lot of tech talk right there. However, it may not be clear just how updated and modernized Iranian air defenses are, as they may not all be capable of detecting U.S. B-2s. If some kind of detection was possible, their defenses would even be less likely to succeed in actually engaging a B-2. That's because it has, well, it can fly really high. The ability of Iran to hit B-2s has likely decreased substantially in recent years, given that the Air Force implemented a series of significant upgrades to the fleet of 20 B-2s to improve stealth, lethality, that's a fancy word to say they're going to kill you, and elude ground-based air defense radar system. It's been upgraded with digital targeting and moving map technology connected to advanced sensors, that's a fancy word for saying AI, to help the crew know the air defense's location so they can be eluded or simply avoided by choosing a different flight path. The upgrades, which are called B-2's display modernization, began years ago as a sensor program called the Defense Management System. The effort appears to have been substantially improved. It has substantially improved a B-2's stability, ability to thwart and elude detection. Therefore, should the Houthis attacks continue, it's conceivable that the president might order a limited series of B-2 strikes to send a message that, yes, you will be held accountable. The strikes could function as a warning that a massive air campaign could follow after a small initial attack should the Houthis not stop. That article comes to us. Where does that come out of? Hold on a minute. I'm on the wrong screen again. Yes, you're correct, Shay. Words are hard. Thank you for pointing that out. You're in dispatch. You know how it is. This comes to us from the website 1945. It's a website about military defense. So I think it's 1945.com. You can find that article there. Come on, close. All right. So in the Middle East, things are going to hell. Shocker. But overnight, well, there were some things going on in, I hit that button again. There were some things going on in Asia. Chinese military launches large-scale drills around Taiwan. Okay, this was apparently unannounced, but they did say that the drills in the water and airspace on Tuesday that include an aircraft carrier battle group, and again it has warned the self-ruled island democracy against seeking formal independence. The joint exercises involve Navy, air, ground, and rocket forces and are meant to be a severe warning and forceful containment against Taiwan's independence, according to a spokesperson for the People's Liberation Army Command. But they did not give an operational name for the drill, and it was not announced previously with any notice to other countries. China considers Taiwan part of its territory to be brought under its control by force if necessary, while most Taiwanese favor their de facto independence and democratic status. Any conflict would likely bring the U.S., which maintains a series of alliances in the region and is legally bound to treat threats to Taiwan as a matter of grave concern. Taiwan's presidential office posted on X that China's blatant military provocations not only threaten peace in Taiwan Strait, but also undermine security in the entire region, as evidenced by drills in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Korea, the Philippines, and now us. And we strongly condone China's escalatory behavior. And it's funny because even what is his name? The president of China is even using Donald Trump tactics and called the president of Taiwan a parasite. So, yeah. Chris, you're right. Thwart and elude. So Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense said it tracked 19 Chinese Navy vessels in the waters surrounding the island for a 24-hour period from 6 a.m. Monday until 6 a.m. Tuesday, and added that the aircraft carrier group had entered into Taiwan's Defense Identification Zone Monday, a self-defined area tracked by the military. And Beijing sends warplanes and Navy vessels towards the island on a daily basis. In recent years, it has stepped up scope and scale of these exercises. Taiwanese officials have recently warned that China could launch a sneak attack under the guise of a military exercise. I want to say that these actions amplify and reflect China's destruction of regional peace and stability, said the Taiwan defense minister. Taiwan has set up a general response group to monitor the latest exercises. On the streets, people said the atmosphere was tense, but they were more concerned about the economy and development surrounding the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump, because we know tomorrow is being called Liberation Day. I'm sure if you were listening to Yerg's on Yerg's radio this morning, you probably got a bunch of information about that. Liberation Day is tomorrow, so that'll be all the news. I don't have an article for it, so there you go. The theater command organized its vessels and aircraft formations in coordination with conventional missile troops and long-range rocket systems to conduct drills of air interception, assault on maritime targets, strikes on ground objects, and joint blockade and control. The Chinese command is quoted as saying, the exercises were aimed at testing the troops' capability of carrying out integrated operations, seizure of operational control, and multi-directional precision strikes. The People's Liberation Army organized naval and air force practices subject to sea and land strike, focusing on testing the troops' ability to carry out these strikes on some key targets in Taiwan. So it sounds like they picked up the phone and he said, hey, we want you to do a test, basically. And they did it without anyone's prior knowledge. China's Coast Guard also announced it was conducting a law enforcement patrol on Tuesday around Taiwan. The drills come just 2 weeks after a large-scale exercise in mid-March when Beijing sent a large number of drones and ships towards the island. Something I would like to research, our president, not Trump, Biden, sent the United States Coast Guard to Taiwan to leave our coast unprotected. Is our Coast Guard still there, or did they get recalled? Because they actually had to have specialized ships along the way to help them because they are not designed for long sea trips. So the Coast Guard vessels aren't. So I wonder if our Coast Guard is still there. That's not going to be fun. Let's see. Beijing sends a message to Taiwan's president. The exercise were directed at Lite, Taiwan's strongly pro-independent president. He is stubbornly insisting on Taiwan independence stance, brazenly labeling the mainland as a foreign hostile force, and has put forward a so-called 17-point strategy, stirring up anti-China sentiments, said China's Taiwan Affairs Office in a statement on Tuesday. We will not tolerate or condone this in any way and must resolutely counter and severely punish these actions. Wow. In mid-March, Taiwan's president put forward a 17-point strategy at shoring up the national security. They included allowing espionage cases to be tried by military court, making immigration rules stricter. That sounds familiar. For Chinese citizens applying for permanent residency. And words and actions appear to have angered Chinese leader Xi Jinping, whose previous attempts at intimidation had little effect on the Taiwanese public. Those have often been timed in responses of expressions towards the independence of Taiwan, including a visit by the then U.S. House leader, Nancy Pelosi. China's People Liberation Army also released a series of videos to publicize their military exercise, including one in which they depict Lei as a green parasite poisoning the island by hatching smaller parasites. The video shows Lei's head on the body of a bulbous green worm with a pair of chopsticks, picking him up and roasting him over a flame set over Taiwan. Taiwan and China split amid a civil war 76 years ago, but tensions have risen since 2016 when China cut off almost all contact. Philippine military chief countries said Philippines military chief says country should be ready to rescue its citizens if China invades. And the Philippines military chief General Romo Bronner asked Filipino forces to prepare to rescue Filipinos working and living in Taiwan if China invades the island, speaking during a ceremony marking the founding anniversary of the military command that secures the Philippine region closest to Taiwan. If something happens to Taiwan, inevitably we will be involved. There are 250,000 overseas Filipino workers in Taiwan, and we will have to rescue them. Okay, so that come to us from this morning from the AP. You can go check it out on their website. But that happened overnight unannounced. It was not very nice of them. Okay, so tomorrow's Liberation Day. I'm sure that Jurgs went over it at nauseum. But according to Breitbart, Canada slaps tariffs on flamethrowers, manatee meat, fake beards, and live monkeys in response to Trump's tariffs. Canada slapped 25% tariffs on about 1,800 American products in March and will implement 4,400 more on April 2nd, the day President Trump plans to announce higher tariffs against every country in the world that taxes U.S. imports. Most of Canada's tariffs are bizarrely targeted at imports that are virtually non-existent, leading critics to suspect the list has been padded with nonsense to make the Canadian response look much tougher than it really is. Canadian TV on Sunday listed some of the odd and obscured imports targeted by Canada, including flamethrowers, false beards, church bell cases, and live monkeys, plus manatee meat and passenger drones. All right. Canadians will also find themselves paying more for imported American accordion parts. Emus, I don't know what the heck that is. Emus, I guess. Why do I have a story every day that involves the word semen in it? Bovine semen and clothing made with asbestos fibers. Toronto residents who dreamed of reaching the stars with an American-made spaceship will pay 25% more to make their dream come true. Ottawa diarists will have to pay 25% more if they want to record their daily adventures in a diary imported from the U.S. Why would you list such a plethora of small, obscure products? I think it's being driven by the need to produce visible optics so they can look like we've got 6,200 items. We're really going at this, and we're really sticking it to the man, Donald Trump and the Americans, said Professor Ian Lee of the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. These are not consumer goods that are turning over in high volumes. These low volume purchases tell me that they're going to have a small impact on the Canadians if only a small number are buying any of them on such given day. I will say manatee meat isn't something that we can make ourselves, but I don't recall it will create too much of a backlash from Canadian consumers, according to University of Virginia economics professor Jason Childs. Aren't manatees endangered? Asking for a friend. Childs may be underselling the pain that will soon be faced by many Canadians. Many Canadian gourmets, not only imported manatee meat will be socked with higher tariffs, but also American grown camel and primate meat. What? Canada's fledgling camel burger industry will tremble on the verge of extinction. I don't even know what to say about that. Of course, not everything get hit with a retaliatory tariff is a bizarre niche product, and Canada is employing other strategies to fight the trade war. CBC reported on Sunday that the Canadian government is purchasing billboards in Republican voting states and the District of Columbia with messages such as tariffs are a tax on your grocery bill, tariffs are a tax at the gas pump, and tariffs are a tax on hardworking Americans. We see one here that was a digital billboard purchased in Kennedy Township, Pennsylvania. And they also have seen them in Columbus, Georgia. So, but the Canadians made the small mistake of printing half of their billboard messages in French, a language not usually spoken in most U.S. cities. Other critics found the billboard message amusingly overwrought, since American consumers are not nearly as dependent on import items from the North as the Canadian government is hoping. So, Chris, you will not be able to get your manatee meat or your live monkeys. I hate to tell you that. I hate to be the one that breaks that to you, Chris. Or Wendell. So, I did not know a camel burger was a thing. I'm now almost tempted to say I want to try one. So, I did not know a camel burger was a thing. I've ate lots of things, but I don't think I've ever heard of a camel burger. I don't know. I will Google that later. All right. So we continue onward and upwards. And we're going to recap the Fram 2, which is a SpaceX rocket that departed Monday from the Kennedy Space Center. If you recall last night or Monday, we talked about how there was restricted air off of the area there at Cape Canaveral or Kennedy Space Center. So we will read this as it occurred. It started last night at 9:46 p.m. Eastern from the Kennedy Space Center pad, and apparently there were some distant storms, yet the launch occurred without delay. The Fram 2 crew went into an orbit that has never been flown by astronauts. They are going to be circumferencing both the North and South Pole. The launch window opened up at 9:46 p.m. Monday, but existed until 11:20, 12:53, and 2:26 Tuesday morning. And they said the recovery weather will play a large part in timing. The launch would be the second in a double-headed day in Florida after the Starlink 6-80 mission lifted off a short time earlier after in the afternoon launch window. Did not know that, which was another rarity for the Space Coast. With this mission headed to polar orbit, it will fly straight south, meaning on the southeast coast of Florida, you could probably see it. Of course, that depended upon weather. So the name Fram was given for the record-breaking Norwegian ship built specifically for polar exploration. It saw 3 expeditions between 1893 and 1912. The ship traveled furthest north in its mission and furthest south on its third mission, breaking ship voyage records for the time. And let's see. Let me continue here. The crew of 4 will be the first to break that record from orbiting at a 90-degree inclination, which is straight over the Earth's pole. The crew will carry with them a piece of the original Fram ship on loan from the Fram Museum in Norway. Fram 2 mission was purchased. I find this interesting. The mission was purchased by cryptocurrency business Chun Wang, who is also serving as the mission commander. Joining Wang is Eric Phillips, who is a mission specialist and medical officer, Janke Mikkelsen, the vehicle commander, and Raby Roge, the spacecraft pilot. All 4 are explorers of extreme places on Earth, such as the polar region. Unlike missions to the International Space Station, Fram 2 is only flying in space for 3 to 5 days. Therefore, the splashdown weather outlook must be favorable for the launch before it took off. And this will mark the first time a Dragon crew launched from Florida and splashed down off the coast of California, or will splash down off the coast of California. So it got up and it took off, and it is in orbit, and it is successfully in the air, and it is circumferencing the poles as we speak. They will be doing 22 technology and human tests while they're in space, and then they will be returning to Earth. One of the things that they are looking at doing while they're up there, I'm just scanning through this timeline of takeoff, it's going backwards. One of the things they're looking at doing while they're up there is taking new images that we have never seen of the polar caps. And I'm not going to read the whole article, but you can go to Spaceflight Now and read this if you like. It basically introduces you to the entire crew. A cryptocurrency entrepreneur, which he purchased it, 42-year-old adventurer Chun Wang, he purchased the flight. He chartered it. All right, that's interesting. It was 8, and he took 8 months of training along with Janicki Mickelson, a 38-year-old cinematographer, and director Raby Roge, a 29-year-old Arctic robotics researcher, and Eric Phillips, a 62-year-old polar explorer, are undertaking the multi-day mission. They named it because of the Fram, and we learn a little bit about each one. The man behind the Fram mission was Chun Wang. He's an entrepreneur. He became fascinated with travel at an early age, growing up in China. He said he wasn't until he turned 18 in 2000 and went off to the university that he traveled more than 107 miles from his home. As a kid, he imagined traveling the world thanks to his grandparents with whom he lived during his childhood. He said they are the ones who taught him to read. In 1987, when I was 5, my grandfather went for a walk and brought home a world map he had found. The map instantly became my favorite thing to play with and sparked my curiosity. What really caught my eye was the empty space at the bottom of the map were the polar regions. From that moment, I was fascinated by the mysterious excitement of these distant and unknown places. Wang began racking up travel miles when he started working for a Norwegian-owned software company in Beijing. To save money, he slept on the sofa of a French colleague at the office or would commute back home on weekends, which was about 75 miles away. Despite having a full-time job, I traveled 47,162 miles by train in 1 year alone, using only my weekends. In total, I spent 2 months solely in train cars in 2007, leaving work for the train stations on Friday and returning Monday. His next 4 years were spent expanding his travels and was able to enter every province in China by train. His first international trip was in 2010 when he visited Nepal and later India. His travels took him to the southernmost tip of the Indian subcontinent. He hopped on board with the Indians' largest nonstop train ride, which took him from, well, I'm just going to say from one to the other end. And it only cost him about $1,000 at the time. Well, that's good. He began planning for the Fram 2 mission with SpaceX when he saw a number of flights could be logged according to his record. He obtained a flight on board the Dragon Resilience before his 1,000th flight of any. This will be his first to space. Before pursuing space flight, Wang, yes, everybody Wang Chung tonight. Yeah, great job. Yeah, in the South, that's going to be good. Printing the Canadians printing the French signs in the South. We barely speak English down here. So, God, if they put them in West Virginia, who knows what they'll think of them. Wang Chung, he got me doing it. He went to work for Bitcoin, and now he's going to outer space. You can read all more about him. Janicki, sitting in the seat reserved for the commander of the Dragon spacecraft, this 38-year-old award-winning cinematographer and film director who has been hailed by the European Commission as an innovator in the next generation of film production. She also was called a monument in virtual reality filmmaking by the lead guitarist Queen, Brian May, who is also an astrophysicist. I did not know that. I should have known that. Mickelson received a master's degree in cinematography from National Film and Television School in the United Kingdom's highlight of her professional career includes serving as a director of photography and stenographer on the VR concerts for Queen plus Adam Lambert VR The Champions. I have been very fortunate to work with legends such as Brian May and to call him my mentor. He taught me an inspiration is born through renewed perspective, and you can either seek out a new perspective or you can create it. We talk about that often on my paranormal show. That's called intent. You create your own future. So she's describing this as the ultimate adventure and the pride of her life. So we're going to get some fascinating images from her from space, and I can't wait to see them. So she's going to confirm she has the ability to shoot in virtual reality and 8K, and we will have some very high quality dramatic images. Now, the youngest member of the Fram 2 is Rabi Roge from Berlin, Germany. The 29-year-old is taking a pause from pursuing a PhD to take part in the mission to space. Originally, she was taking pause from her studies to conduct a trip to Antarctica, but didn't imagine that flying a low Earth orbit was going to be on the docket. I'm very humbled that he has invited me, speaking of Chun, to the mission. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. So she started a PhD in Norway, which focuses on decision makings in autonomous boats in polar waters. I find it fascinating how the rules change when condition gets hostile with wind and waves and ice. It is already hard for us humans, so how could an autonomous vehicle that thinks for itself agent know how to take the right path? By the way, I did for my show on the Thin Line Rock Station, I found out that AI can hallucinate. She will be the first German woman in space. Congratulations to her. And then the last one is Eric Phillips. You will perhaps be more interested to know that he's a 62-year-old Australian polar explorer. And he's on his personal website. He describes himself as a polar adventurer, which goes back to his time as a kid when his parents started taking him and his siblings to southern Australia. I've dedicated much of my life to untracked areas of the Arctic and Antarctica, including pioneering 4 glacial routes to the South Pole. Much of my polar career has been as a guide, taking relative novices into areas previously the domain was for professional explorers, a direct extension of my previous occupation as an outdoor educator. Adventure is its own reward and it has made me who I am. He's the founder and director of the company called Ice Trek Expeditions and has more than 30 years of experience in polar environments. All right, so he will be there. The Fram 2 will be the highest inclination a crew launch has in history and will be getting experience on the parts of the Earth he explored dozens of times on the ground, but now from space. So he said he's viewed thousands of images of the Antarctica and Arctic while planning polar expeditions, but there are no experimental evidence that we observe by being truly representative of how they look from space with human eyes. So we will be getting that here soon. Images should start coming in soon. I'm sure that they got to be released by somebody with a secret clearance before we can see them. Why is that? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it'll go. Well, we'll cover this real quick. Elon Musk previews Doge looking into wealth of lawmakers. How do they become rich? How do you go from a bartender to a millionaire? So Elon Musk said the organization will look into the reasons so many of Congress suddenly become rich, accumulating general wealth over their years in government service. Musk took questions during a town hall in Wisconsin on Sunday, and one individual asked if Doge had uncovered any connections of funds to the likes of Representative Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff, or the highly scrutinized U.S. Agency for International Development, which we know as USAID, which the U.S. State Department is trying to eliminate. And they're actually not trying to eliminate it, they're actually transitioning it into the State Department. Musk explained that the government will often send money overseas, which flows to these non-governmental organizations, and he believes the funds end up coming back to the U.S. directly into the pockets of some of the lawmakers, describing it as a circuitous route. He explained, it doesn't go directly, but let's just say that there's a lot of strangely wealthy members of Congress where I'm trying to connect the dots of how did they become rich. Members of Congress outside of leadership positions make an average salary of $174,000 a year. So this raises eyebrows when some become millionaires. Nancy Pelosi, who has been in Congress since 1987, has a net worth of $50.9 million, while Quiver Quarantine places her at $285 million. According to Business Insider, Senator Rick Scott from Florida, who co-founded both HCA Healthcare and Solanic, is considered one of the richest in Congress with $549 million. While it's true that some lawmakers made their personal fortunes prior to coming to Congress, is more than enough evidence to raise suspicion of a potential pipeline. How do they get $20 million if they're earning $200,000 a year? Musk asked. We're going to try and figure it out and certainly stop it from happening. All right. So I'll be interested to see how that turns out for both parties, because we know both parties are doing it. All right. Yeah, we'll cover this real quick, and then we'll go to our weather stuff, because then it'll be top of the day or top of the hour in our show. This also comes to us from the Daily Mail. A girl of trucks mow down multiple pedestrians in Boston. Okay, that's breaking news that just flashed up there. A truck has mowed down multiple pedestrians in Boston. We might pull it up real quick. A girl 15 feared she was being attacked by a shark in the ocean, was but stunned to see the real predator. A teenage girl initially feared she was being attacked by a shark during her lifeguard test in Southern California, but the predators turned out to be an aggressive sea lion. She was 15. She was doing her swim test for lifeguard certification in Long Beach when she felt something clamp down on her arm. Out of nowhere, I felt something biting my arm, she told KTLA. I saw a shadow of it, and I'm thinking, please don't be a shark, please don't take off my arm, and please don't kill me. Her own mother thought she had seen a shark and yelled the predator was in the water. We all rushed to the water. When I realized it was my daughter, that's when I broke down, she told the local outlet. Except it wasn't a shark, but an angry sea lion that was attacking the teenager, but that didn't mean she walked away unharmed. The animal had bitten and scratched the teenager's arm several times, causing the limb to swell and bruise. Other lifeguards came to her rescue and pulled her out of water before rushing her to the hospital. The girl still has red scratches littering her arms, but once she is fully recovered, she plans on trying out for the lifeguard cadets once more. I love the beach. I love the ocean. I love swimming, she told KTLA. Earlier this year, surfer was left shaken to his core after being mauled by a sea lion infected with a zombie-like neurotoxin. Okay. He described his experience at riding the waves at California's Oxnard State Beach Park before encountering a deranged predator. Out of nowhere, it erupted from the water, hurling toward me at full speed with its mouth gaped wide and teeth gleaming. Hey, Cheyenne, are you noting this for your horror show? This could be a new one. After several attempts at its ambush, the crazed animal clamped its jaws down hard on his left butt cheek. I don't know why I found that funny. He is now dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder from the encounter and says that he has a neurological disorder due to an infection by toxic algae blooms. He described it as a harrowing and traumatic experience. My 20 years of surfing has left me shaking to the core. I did not know there were zombie sea lions. Can we sell that meat to Canada? The pain was sharp and immediate, but the terror was worse. It shook its head violently, tugging me off my board, my flesh dragging me into the water. Its expression was feral, almost demonic, devoid of curiosity or playfulness that I had always associated with the sea lions. The surfer said he eventually stumbled back onto the beach with blood pouring down his leg, but managed to drive himself to a nearby hospital. Last summer, other beachgoers were left screaming and crying after a protective sea lion charged at them. Well, they captured footage of this attack. Prior to the attack, beachgoers said the marine mammal was swimming around the area with its baby, and the sea lion came face to face with one of the swimmers before it swam away, leaving the humans unhurt. Sea lions can weigh as much as 700 pounds and are known to be aggressive and are known to be aggressive. The ones gracing Southern California waters are dealing with poisonous algae blooms, which may make them even angrier. Beachgoers are warned to leave the sea lions alone and avoid eye contact. All right, so if you're in the woods with a bear, you have an air horn, you blow. If you're in the water of Southern California, do not make eye contact with the sea lions. I'm just telling you that for your own knowledge. Sometimes I wonder why do people listen to me? Why do I have ratings? Chris says Amanda may have been right about the fish. Well, there's some truth to that. Let's see if we can bring up anything with this click here. Breaking news from the Daily Mail. A truck has hit multiple pedestrians in downtown Boston, leaving 2 people in critical condition, including the driver. A horrific crash occurred around 12:45 p.m. at Harrison and Nealon Street in Mass City's Chinatown neighborhood. Boston EMS said 4 people were taken to the hospital with injuries and 2 are in critical condition. 2 more being treated at the scene, but declined to be taken to the hospital. The aerial photograph from the scene published by WCVB shows a Penske truck overturned on a sidewalk with several firefighters standing close by. Penske is an American truck which provides truck rentals for moving home. I could have went all day without knowing that. Another image shows its truck on its side outside the Great Wall Kitchen Supply Store, surrounded by a debris strewn across the street. All right, well, I was hoping that it was not a terrorist attack, and it sounds like this is merely an accident. So Boston said it slammed into the building before overturning. Several vehicles, including ambulances, fire trucks, and police cruisers, could be seen at the scene. Well, that's because it's an emergency. So it was a bad accident, and hopefully those 2 people will make it, said Boston's Deputy Chief Stephen Schaefer. All right, well, I'm glad to know that it was not a terrorist attack, because we know that's a common thing to use trucks or vehicles and drive into cars. We might get into sports a little bit later on. Let's see. I did have another breaking news story. Let's pull this up and see if there's anything to it still. Let me kill that. No, I don't see anything in the airways. There was an armed suspect, barricaded armed subject up by Andy in Dundalk, Maryland, which is just to the east of Baltimore. 3 schools have been placed on lockdown, and they were issuing shelter in order places because of an armed barricaded suspect. They were called to the area of German Hill. Police were called to the area of German Hill Road and Gray Manor Terrace for reports of shots fired. People are asking people to avoid the area as precaution. Baltimore City Police responded to an armed barricade subject outside of Gray Manor Terrace in Dundalk. All right, so they do not know. They must have the situation resolved because I do not see a helicopter flying overhead. To get perspective on where this is or where this occurred, according to Google Maps, it is due east of Baltimore on the map. And I looked to see if there were any helicopters circling the area, and there are not. So there you have it. This is flight aware for the current time. We'll just zoom out here so that you can see how many aircraft are flying above us at any given time. Is that not amazing? All right, so that is, we can see Hawaii down there, all the people coming and going, and yeah, it's amazing. The entire world is almost covered in aircraft, even down under. I find that incredible. At any point in time, you can pull that up on either Flight Aware or ABS tracking. And if you know your plane's number, you can actually get an alert set for it. All right, so it's top of the hour, and I want to thank everybody for allowing us to tickle your ears on Radio X in Australia. We are the Sportcat's Daily Gazette. We are here from 1 till 3 Eastern time, which I believe is, well, depending on where you're at, it's about 3 to 5 a.m. your time. And we appreciate you allowing us in on the night shift. We also appreciate Yerg's Radio, and we appreciate Rainbow Radio for allowing us to tickle their ears. What we normally do here is typically our show is basically a prepper survival show, But we're not telling you why the world's going to end. We're going to tell you why you survived another day to be tortured in this world. Where we start off is the President's Daily Briefing. I get my briefing from FEMA that is updated daily at 8:30 a.m. It's the same briefing he receives, except we don't get the secret squirrel stuff. If you have secret squirrel stuff you would like to send me, I am on Signal, but you can send me an email at sportcat@protonmail.com, or you can pretty much find me anywhere on social media at Sportcat or at SportCatMedic. So currently, the FEMA current situations that they're monitoring is severe weather, which is going to affect the central part of the country today and the eastern part later tonight. The severe thunderstorms in the central and southern plains, heavy rains, flash flooding in the Ohio and mid-Mississippi Valley, but we're also going to have freezing rain in upper Mississippi Valley and the Great Lakes. There is going to be also some critical fire weather in southwest central and southern plains. And it has been reported to me already by one listener that there's heavy snow falling. Well, they're calling for it in California, the Central Great Basin, and Great Plains. This was in Colorado. It was near whiteout conditions. There are no new disaster declarations as of yet. But the severe weather, everybody should have several things. They should have a tool of some sort to survive. They should have a flashlight, and they should have a NOAA weather radio or a weather radio for wherever you're listening. Currently today, we're worried about severe weather. Chris says, I thought I heard you say there was an armed bear in a cave. As I was looking back into the room, I was happy that was not the case. Well, we did just talk about, we've used the word sperm in demonic sea lion. So what else? What else can I do? There's only so much I can do, Chris. Severe weather. And if you would like to come over and join the chat, I usually have a very lively group in the chat. Please come over and find me on YouTube, the Paranormal Guys. Guys is spelled with a Z, or you can just search out the Sportcat Daily Gazette, and you can hear about armed bears in a cave. So we're going to talk about severe weather today in the central and eastern United States. So FEMA has got set up pretty much in Indiana, Mississippi, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all of their emergency operations center, as well as Alabama, Mississippi, Kentucky, and Tennessee. They are monitoring or at partial activation, which is Tennessee, and in Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, Ohio, and Wisconsin, they are doing partial operations or activation. So in other words, they're just paying attention to it, but they're not 100% on full activation or alert. Arkansas is at normal operations. So they're monitoring the storm, which today will be pretty much from the southern border in central Texas, extending all the way through the central plains, almost to the Great Lakes. And that is a front that has got a cold low pressure behind it that's going to be pushing across the United States, and it's going to be causing some very severe weather for later in the week. So you want to be weather aware. They're worried about flooding on the 2nd through the 5th of April. This is not an April Fool's joke. And the primary of flooding will pretty much be from Cincinnati west downward, well, southwest, downward towards Dallas. That includes the Little Rock, Nashville area corridor, where they're going to get moderate rain, which could be as high as 6 to 8 inches. That's going to extend outward pretty much from the Great Lakes down to the border in Texas, where they will get marginal rainfall. However, it's subject to change, and the most intense rain is going to be around Paducah, Louisville, Cincinnati, and Little Rock, extending out to St. Louis, Springfield, Tulsa, Dallas, Shreveport, Nashville, back over to Charleston, where you're listening, Cheyenne, and up to Columbus in Ohio. That's going to be the slight chance. And I'm sorry, that's not the slight, that's the marginal chance. And then it's going to extend outward from there. But it is subject to change, and the storm is moving in the typical fashion from west to east. And there's a little high that we talked about spinning yesterday off of the coast of Florida that's keeping this thing from really gaining speed. But it's got a cold front that's it's a low pressure on the west coast that's pushing forward, and this little high spinning down here is going to be giving it energy as this low and this high meet over the central part of the country later in the week. Currently, pretty much from Washington over across the top of the country, extending into Michigan, you can expect mixed precipitation that's going to extend southward almost all the way down in California into higher elevations to the border, pretty much encompass Nevada, Utah, Colorado, we already talked about whiteout conditions, Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. And then the severe weather today is going to be centered in the area highlighted in the yellow black, which is Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and just a little tip of Illinois there. But that's going to expand as this goes further east. As it goes further east on Wednesday, that little high that's sitting off of the coast of Florida is going to be pushed out of the way by the high pressure that is currently sitting over the New England coastline or New England area and going to meet up with the low where it's going to gain, unfortunately, warm Arctic air to give it energy, which is what's going to make it very, very hostile Wednesday going into Thursday. So pay weather aware. We'll look at this a little closer here in a minute on the National Weather Center page, but you can expect pretty much the middle of the country to be a soaker, both vertical and horizontal, with flooding conditions in the Central Plains down to the south. Wednesday, that is going to pretty much continue all the way across to almost the Mid-Atlantic region and encompass from the Gulf of America down to or up to Vermont. And then on Thursday, it will finally start pushing off, but that's when the southeast is going to take the brunt of the storm Thursday. And the even longer outlook says that by Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the south, it could be considerably bad. So we'll keep an eye on that. The fire weather outlook for today pretty much encompasses all of New Mexico, part of Texas, and up into the Four Corners region. So tomorrow's going to be slightly decreased because of the rain moving across the country. You can see here FEMA is already putting assets in place, and they're going to be assisting with the local emergency operations center. And I had a story I meant to pull up. I did not get to. FEMA is working to repopulate the citizens that were affected by the hurricane in the south and southeast. Well, there's a high school that has got their shop students building mini homes that FEMA is picking up and they're taking to the residents to give them shelter. I was going to pull that story up, but there's a high school that the shop is teaching them how to build homes, mini homes. This is the FEMA daily briefing. They get into all the financial stuff, all the exact numbers, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into that. You can find this at the National Disaster page on FEMA's operating briefing. It comes out daily. They say at 8:30 a.m., but I think it's really after they give it to the president, then they release it to us. Speaking of the president, let's see what the president is doing today. He must have a busy schedule, being that it's April Fool's Day. Well, we know that 9 a.m. is the in-pool camera time for all press. At 12 o'clock, there is a press briefing by Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt in the James S. Brady press briefing room. And I'm sure it upset some people and shook the core of the mainstream media because they're allowing podcasters and influencers into the sacred press briefing room. At 12:30, the U.S. President and Vice President will have lunch, the U.S. Department of State, and only pre-credentialed media will be allowed. Probably no influencers there. Now, assume that they will probably have pretty much a large section of his cabinet there. And then at 3:30 today, in a closed press briefing, the president is going to sign even more executive orders. That is President Trump's official schedule for today. I would show you what's going on in the halls of Congress, but it would just be nothing more than a temper tantrum that has lasted for about 15 hours now by the senator from New York. What's his? I don't forget his name. He's on a tangent. He's going to keep talking until he drops out. He's pitching a fit, doing a filibuster over nothing. I don't know. I don't get it. But anyhow, he's pitching a tantrum, and he has been for about 15 hours, unless something's happened since I last checked with the Lite. mainstream media. So we look here at the forecast map. It's pretty much for today, as I explained. Really, if you do not have a weather radio, you need to get one. Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri today are really going to be under the gun. Tomorrow, that's going to extend eastward and intensify when it gets that warm Gulf moisture, and going to be pretty much Texas, Mississippi, starting in Alabama, most of Tennessee, all of Kentucky, partially up into West Virginia, into Indiana, Illinois, and then it's going to be mixed precipitation, and it's going to start feeding back across the east, and my son in Vermont is going to get some more snow. So freezing rain and snow conditions are expected. By day 3, this little front's going to kind of stall out here, so we're going to have a rough day of it on day 3 on April 3rd, Thursday, because it's going to kind of stall out a little bit because it's going to absorb all the energy from this depression off of the coast of the Carolinas, and it's going to be absorbing all the energy coming out of the Gulf, and it's just going to stall out, and that's what's going to cause the flooding and the severe weather in the Ohio Valley region down through the southeast into Texas, and that's not going to be a fun adventure for any of us. But that's the next 3 days in the national forecast. And the National Weather Center, as always, has a radio frequency nearby that you can listen to, and you should have a weather radio so you can listen to them. It's free of charge. You pay for it. Why not? You should do it. All right. So we're going to look at Zoom Earth, and we're going to first off take a look at our friends down under and see what's going on with the satellite there. It looks like it's a cloudy day in Australia. Let's look at the radar. And we see that Queensland's getting a little bit of rain. New South Wales is getting a little bit of rain. And there's some rain off the coast of Western Australia. Precipitation for the state is mainly expected to be from the Gold Coast region, extending north up into Queensland and into the Northern Territory, which is where the main precipitation for today is. The winds are going to be relatively mild in Australia today, with that little cyclone spinning off of Sydney, just sitting there. It's going to cause the most windy conditions, but the wind will be relatively moderate except for the coastline. And the temperatures for today, it's going to be along the western coastline in the 70s. As further north you go, it'll be in the high 80s in Portland and Darwin in 81. In the middle of the country, it's going to be kind of chilly at 60. And over on the east coast, you're going to see temperatures from the high 70s to low 80s. Now in Sydney, though, you're going to be getting a little bit of a cold front off of that cyclone spinning there. It's going to be in the 60s. Up in Canberra, it could be as low as in the 40s. Melbourne, 54. And along the southern coastline, it's going to be in the 60s. All right, let's zoom out and let's go to America and see what it looks like where we are. And right now, it looks like temperatures, well, Atlanta is 71. In Louisville, Kentucky, it's 54. Up in Chicago, Chris, it's 37. Washington, D.C., KG, it's 55. Kyle, up in Vermont, it's 34. For our friends over on the West Coast, in Seattle, it's rainy and 46. Portland is 49. Medford is 44. Down in San Francisco, it's foggy at 54. We travel across the country into Boise, and it's 39. Salt Lake is 34. Denver, my friend in Colorado, it's in the 50s, but she's at a higher elevation, and she was experiencing whiteout conditions driving her child to school today. Las Vegas, you're going to be cold today. It's going to be 61. Phoenix, it's going to be chilly for you at 70. Albuquerque, 64. The hottest place in the country right now will be down in southern Florida, where it's in the high 80s. In my favorite place in the world, Key West, and where Jurg's radio is, it's going to be in the 80s. Mobile, 76. Pensacola, 74. All right, so that's the temperatures. Let's look at the satellite here, and we see that little front's just kind of sitting there, and we see the snow coming across from the west. Look at the current radar, which I'll pull up in another map that does it much better. And we see that it's not really formed yet. That's going to be the problem. This right here off of the coast of Florida is not letting it form, but this is trying to push across. It's a low that's got a high above Ottawa that's trying to push down and bring us some cold stuff. So precipitation today, this map really isn't very good at that. We did temperatures. All right, so let's zoom out of this. Let's go to current weather conditions. I like this map much better. This comes to us from GEMA, which is the Georgia Emergency Management Agency. I think it's a great weather map because it outlines the United States. You can have it show a lot of things. It shows everything from local hospitals to FEMA's centers. Or there are so many settings on this. You can bring up a lot of data, almost so much data, it makes your screen unreadable. All right. So we see that we've already started with the flood warnings down in Louisiana, and the flood warnings are extending up through the southern valley of Louisiana, Memphis, up into the Appalachians of Louisville, down into the Ohio Valley, coming from Cleveland down. That little section is already under a flood warning. Just north of there, what is that? That's probably just a flood watch, wind advisory. Okay. And so wind advisory, we have a wind advisory currently. Where is that? From Omaha south down to Oklahoma City, extending back to the west in Tucson. And that's where that area of red flag is. So they've got a wind advisory and red flag with low humidity. So that's not a good condition. We see over in the West Coast, all the gale warnings. The higher elevations are under winter weathery. Over in the Midwest, we see they're already preparing with winter storm warnings in the higher elevations, as that continues pretty much across the top of the country. And we see over in Vermont and Maine, in that area, they are under no current watches or warnings, but that's going to change. All right. So I think that's pretty much it for this map. We're going to look at our weather warnings here. Let me refresh this page. This is weatherwarning.affirmatech.com. I'm not affiliated with this site, but I think it's a great site that gives you data, and you can pull up and find out where a weather warning is anywhere in the country. All right. We see Andy is testing again in Maryland, has 15 seconds left. Most recent is Alaska with a winter storm watch. We didn't talk about them. Flood watch, as we talked about, in Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and Missouri. Yeah, text messaging incoming. I don't know what he's testing every day. I check this, and he's testing. I don't understand. Coastal flooding in Louisiana and Mississippi, and they're under a flood advisory and a flood watch. Special weather statement out in California. I assume that's probably for the upcoming snows. Red flags in Kansas and Nebraska. Gale warnings are out in the that's gale warnings out in the Caribbean. Flood watch in Kentucky. New Mexico has a dust advisory. Wind advisories in California, Oklahoma. Why is Wyoming is got winter weather advisories, along with Utah. Colorado has high wind warnings, but I don't see anything there about snow. But my friend actually sent me a picture of whiteout conditions. So I hope she got her child to and fro safely to school. Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and Missouri, you have a wind advisory, 15 hours left on that. And there we go, Colorado, winter weather advisory above 10,000 feet. So I assume she would be above 10,000 feet. So she's under a winter weather advisory. Texas, if you're in Loving or Reeves, you've got a dust storm warning, which is basically a cyclone of dirty air coming at you at 70 miles an hour. Tennessee, out on the western half of Tennessee, extending slightly to the mid-central Tennessee, a flood warning for the deeper west counties. And down on the Gulf Coast of America, there's rip currents in Alabama and Florida. And we see as we continue onward, Montana, they have issued their winter warnings already in advance. And Illinois, Chris, you have a flood warning, depending on what section. We will have a wind advisory here in East Tennessee. What is going on? Why did I suddenly go away? Am I still here? I looked over and I went away. What happened? I don't know. All right. Well, it shows I'm still on the air. Let me check with Yeah, they want to make sure I'm still in the air there. Yes, I'm still in the air with Radio X, Yergs, and Rainbow Radio. Chris, let me know if for some reason you can't hear me. Well, Chris, if you can't hear me, how will you know I'm talking? Uh, New Mexico, high wind warnings, and we get back into where they had started the warnings earlier in the day with the winter weather advisories and the small craft advisories along the coastlines. So you can check out this website, Weather Warning. It's a free website. However, they do have a tip jar. I encourage you to check it out. You can go look. They also have a map of the current activity where the worst weather is right now in the central part of the country, with extending outward with the current radar. You can see where the current thunderstorms are, and there's a 70% chance of tornadic activity in that section just above Oklahoma. Um, and it's going to be 10% from Texas to the Great Plains. And there's even a slight chance out on the West Coast for some tornadic activity. Wind is strongest in the center of the country. We'll get a wind map here in a second. And then your tornadic activity threat, pretty much the middle part of the country, anywhere from 2 to 10%. Very small chance, and that would more likely be a snownado in the higher elevations. But there's a very small chance. I believe that's up like Clackamas County up in there. So be weather aware, have a weather radio, flashlight, a tool at all times with you. All right, we're going to look at this map is lightningmaps.org, and this map is great for telling us where the current lightning is. Currently, we do not see any lightning activity in the continental United States. Let's zoom out a bit here, and we see that most of it is down, well, it's south and east of us. Bermuda, you're about to get hammered, but it's between Bermuda in the coast of the Carolinas, which is actually about 300 miles. I've flown this many times. I was actually lost in the Bermuda Triangle, but that's a story for another show. And we will zoom down under and see if you are having any lightning activity, and you indeed are. In Queensland, you're experiencing some severe lightning, pretty much to the east of Mount Isa, and let's see, along the coastline up in the Northern Territory. That's the areas where you're experiencing lightning at the moment. A little cyclone spinning down there, but it just don't have any lightning in it. All right. Let's get out of this map, and we will bring this up. I'll refresh it because I brought it up earlier today. This is the wind map. This is also a free site. This just shows us the current wind over the United States. And right now, the highest wind speed is 31.7 miles an hour. And I'm going to guess that that is probably over in the western region of the country, probably right there in the Clackamas Mountains coming off the Pacific coast. Let's see, maybe up here, maybe in northwestern. No, I don't really see it. So we do have that front trying to push down. We'll see it in the bigger picture here. This is a high pressure up over Ottawa trying to push down with this low coming across, but this high that's been sitting here and causing the dry air and the pollen. So, well, Chris, there is actually a show on that, but I'll be glad to tell it sometime. I didn't know I was abducted by aliens, but the coast of the Carolinas, where that little high is, it's pushed all the air inward, and pretty much the Carolinas to the base of the Appalachians. We're going to see where that fire is. This has created some dry wind or dry conditions with the wind, and increased the fires in the Appalachian Mountains, and increased the pollen in the other parts. It sucks. I've already taken 2 allergy medications today. I even took the one that's going to give me dementia. Who knew? So that we talked about yesterday. This is poweroutage.us, and we see that right now the pretty much Michigan is 193,853 without power, and we look into Wisconsin with 25,000, and down into Indiana with 19,000. Those are the most areas without power at the moment. Those are the states with the highest power outage. Let me rephrase that. Look at the air now, which I disagree with this map because I think The air sucks in East Tennessee, but who am I? I'm not a meteorologist. I hit that button again. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm just a hot bag of bloated air that talks for 2 hours a day. We see the worst air quality conditions are currently pretty much Los Angeles right now. No, that's Riverside in the San Bernardino area. Your air quality sucks at the moment, so stay inside. It's hazardous to your health. Ooh, that's probably the worst I would say. It's purple right there. It's purple, and that is over Cathedral City. I don't. That's over the Anzea Mountains, extending into. I don't even know where that is. That's horrible air quality. We look over to the south, and pretty much that front is spun everything out, with the exception of that little area in Georgia. And down is probably the lowest quality. Chris, you're good up in there. Denise, you're pretty good up in there. And the next poor air quality is over in Kansas, and pretty much along the coastline of Texas, Louisiana, and New Orleans, and a little bit of Alabama there in the Gulf of America. All right, that's your interactive air map. I'm going to pull up this map because it makes me giggle. This is from the Weather Channel. This talks about tree pollen, and we see that pretty much as we've discussed all this week, center part of the country, south, is sucks. The Tennessee Valley right now sucks. So it's the city, all that pollution and pollen is sitting in the air right now, and it's just horrible. Over both of the Carolinas, on the other side of the Appalachia, extending up in Chesapeake, it's pretty bad conditions. When you get back over a little to the west in DC, going down along the 81 corridor, it gets a break, but then it comes back into it down into the mid Tennessee Valley, and that continues all the way down almost to the Gulf of America. Texas, you pretty much have horrible tree pollen at the moment as well. Grass pollen is not as bad as of yet. The breathing map, they say, isn't that bad, with the exception of Texas. And we're going to look at, where did I see that? The aches and pains map, because it makes me giggle. The aches and pains map shows that pretty much from Texas across the heart of the country up to, it's where that little front is trying to advance, that pressure change up to the Canadian border is where the most aches and pains are felt. You're getting a little break if you're in pretty much southern Georgia, both the Carolinas and West Virginia up into the Great Lakes, where you should be pain-free. But they're experiencing some pain from that other pressure, that high pressure up in the New England area. So that is courtesy of the Weather Channel. I just broke it. I broke the Weather Channel. All right, we're going to look at this map I like to use. This comes to us from NASA and the U.S. Forestry Service. They teamed up to show us. If you notice, you'll see little red dots. Those are fires that the satellite has detected or someone has called in, but they do not have boots on the ground to confirm or deny that they are actual fires. We see that the fires are still burning over on the Carolina side of the Appalachia. They have not gained much control over them. Those rains coming through, hopefully, unless lightning sparks more, should help out a lot. Those are not under control yet. Up into the Allegheny Mountains, there's some fires in West Virginia and the eastern tip of Kentucky at West Virginia. And we look back at Oklahoma. They're getting a little bit of break with their fire conditions. They've got most of them under control, except for the one up towards Tulsa, the Whitehorn, and then the Happy Hill area fires. Those are the only two there. How do you name a fire Happy Hill? And out in the Great Plains, you have a fire. North Dakota, you have one large fire. Over in, where is this? Irwin, California, you have a brush fire. The fire weather warning is from Tucson, extending pretty much all of New Mexico, part of Colorado, up there at the Four Corners region, down across Oklahoma, back into Texas to the Mexican border. That is the fire weather. We'll look real quick at where all that smoke is going that makes the air quality so great. And most of that smoke is extending, shocker, southward. It's going down through the Gulf of America, pushing along the coastline down into Guatemala. I'm sorry, brain cramps, Mexico, down to Mexico. And over on the western coast where those fires are, that air is just kind of sitting there, causing a very, very hazardous day. The Oklahoma fires, your smoke is traveling due north. So there's your smoke conditions. And this map also has fires, but it is not as high a quality as the other. But you can see if we zoom in here on the Appalachia region, they've got so many fires that they've got the dots are purple. So there's a lot of fires on the Carolina side. All right, let me refresh this. This is the latest earthquake map. Well, and it has changed since I last pulled it up. The most recent earthquake is in Newkirk, New Mexico of a 3.0. And the next one I see for the United States down in Wendell, you had one in Petersville. No, I'm sorry, it's Alaska. Petersville, Alaska of a 3.7. And that seems to be it. The U.S. Virgin Islands had a 3.1 in Cruz Bay. Where's this one? This is in the mid-South Atlantic Ocean. They had a 5.1. Wonder if a tsunami warning was issued for that. And that takes us back a ways. I don't see anything else in the U.S. Let's hop down to Australia. I don't see any nearby you. Indonesia, of course, we talked about them having those ones that were more serious over in Asia. So, all right, so that's pretty much the earthquake map for the world. You can zoom out and see all of the earthquake activity, and the newer ones are blue, and they start turning orange to red with age. So that's provided by the U.S. Geological Systems, USGS. Is it U.S. Geological System? Yeah, I think that's it. Earthquake.usg.gov. All right. And the favorite map of the fans is if you're listening on the radio, if you're listening on Jurg's radio or Rainbow Radio, you don't get a true grasp of this one until you come over and find us and hit that subscribe and notification bell, and you get to see the AI wind generated map. This is a thing of beauty that you wish you could hang above your bed at night and just sit and watch. It is the current wind conditions in the world, and AI is showing what they look like, and they are lighter colors of emerald to deeper colors of emerald by the speed. And we can see that little one spinning off, we talked about, off of the Carolina coast, extending upward to the northeast, and that front coming across, while this one up here is trying to push down. The dry air that's running right now is through the center of the country. And we'll go down to the rest of the world and see what it looks like down under. I can't wait to see those pictures of the polar regions. I really can't. We see that little, they're missing out. Chris has been telling everybody, you need to come over, like, follow, share, and subscribe to see this daily. It is something to be seen. The people that are allowing us to tickle their ears are missing this, and they need to come over and see this. We see this little cyclonic activity off of the southeast corner of Australia, and it's just sitting there. So they haven't named it a storm, so it's just kind of sitting there. It's just old front sitting there, spinning, minding its own business, putting the winds along the eastern coast kind of to the northeast, while the winds down south are being pushed down south by a front that's further up over Western Australia, pushing it pretty much across the middle of the continent. And it is not a very breezy day in Australia today, but I believe I already said that. We see that one little cyclonic event there that's out in the Indian Ocean, not really doing anything, just minding its own business, and it doesn't appear to going to be harm anyone. We don't see any cyclonic activity between us and Africa. That's just a little stalled front there, but there's nothing that the National Weather Service is concerned about, nor is there anything off of the Pacific that they are concerned about. But that is our globe. And I can't wait to see those pictures from low orbit space of the polar caps. I mean, that's going to be amazing. It's really going to be amazing. I can't wait to see them if they declassify them. That's going to, well, I'm sure they're going to declassify them, but you know how the systems work. And if we look up here, I can't wait to see them here, especially over Greenland. That's going to be beautiful up in there in Antarctica. So looking forward to that. So that is our AI wind map. Let me minimize that. And we're going to take you to the real-time map of Earth. And not map, I'm sorry, real-time satellite views of Earth from space. These are from NOAA. And we can see that it's pretty cloudy over the northeast section of the country. In the Midwest, it's not as cloudy. It's spotty clouds in the south, southeast down into Florida. And out front over here on the west coast is just starting to push through and getting a little cloudier. We'll go down to Australia. We see the day and time zone difference, or day, night, light. Ugh. It's where it's bright, more it's dark. How about that? Australia, we talked about this earlier. It's kind of cloudy in Australia today, except for maybe on the, was that the west coast, the Perth section is not as cloudy. And yeah, I can't wait. See, because look, we don't get it. There's really nothing there when you go to the tops of the Earth. There's really nothing there. Is it classified? I mean, we don't get to see it. So I can't wait to see the pictures from the Fram 2 Discovery. All right, we'll go through the event list real quick before we turn this back over to Jurgs at Jurgs Radio for his show. Because remember, he does a news magazine where he talks about headlines that have broke since, well, we started talking this morning. So we're going to scan through this, and we're going to look for events that occurred within the past 24 hours. And we're going to see, let's see, for one, Australia, you've had some E. coli that is recalled salads. So check your salads if you're in Australia, because there is a recall for possible E. coli. In India, more than 100 people fall sick after consuming adulterated buckwheat. Okay. I really need more to that story than that. Okay, so in India, if you have some adulterated buckwheat, return it or don't eat it. It's going to make you sick because 100 people are already sick. So New Zealand, they have had several fall ill in a Canterbury lake due to toxic lake algae. All right, New Zealand, if you have sea lions, do not make eye contact with them, and they may be rabid. Just warning you. Liberia, overnight, they had power outages at Roberts International Airport. I believe we discussed that already. And let's see here. In Netherlands, a second blast in a month at a shopping mall overnight. All right. In New England, 2 dead in a Miami bus shooting. I don't know if we covered that yesterday. Nigeria, 2 children killed, 20 injured in a stampede, 4 injured in downtown Austin. I think it's getting back into old news. Nigeria, they had 20 cows poisoned and 200 rustled. Need some cowboys to go over there and solve that. Let's see. Thousands march in Dallas to protest Trump's immigration policies. They're trying to have a 1 million-man march in Washington, D.C. I heard about that today. If you're in Washington, D.C., stay the hell out of there because it's going to be chaos. We know that it's still going on between Israel, and we know that it's still going on in Ukraine. Czech Republic has declared a state of emergency over the benzene. We talked about that. And what do we have? Australia. This is new. Toxic bloom focuses shift to Kangaroo Island as more dead sea creatures wash ashore. Seeing a trend here. Toxic algae and blooms in sea life. All right. So if you have manatees down there, you can sell that meat to Canada, probably tariff-free from Australia. And if you have sea lions, don't make eye contact. So India, 13 killed in a blast at a firecracker factory. All right, in India. And they also had an explosion at a nitrogen gas leak with 40 hospitalized there. And there was another 6 killed in an illegal firework factory in West Bengal. In Turkey, well, we talked about that one already. And let's see. India, 4 children among 7 4 children among 7 killed in a gas cylinder explosion in West Bengal. In Iran, 2 policemen were killed in a fireworks blast. In Pakistan, a gas cylinder explosion injured 11, including children. Uzbekistan, a gas explosion in a mosque leaves 3 dead. I think we talked about that yesterday. Malaysia had 25 injured in a gas pipeline fire. I saw that on Twitter, or excuse me, X. That was a big deal. United States, we had an apparent explosion with probably multiple injuries in a Detroit apartment building. I'm going to guess that was probably a gas leak. Italy, you had a terrorist attack. I read about this before coming online. This was overnight. You had a firebombing at a Tesla dealership in Rome, destroying 17 cars, but no one was injured. But they have listed it as a terrorist attack. United Kingdom overnight, a huge blaze broke out near a hospital, and locals reported explosions. I don't know any more on that. Russian federations, Kazakhstan, Mexico, Nigeria are all experiencing some fires. We talked about Finland. They have a watch this weekend coming up for a high risk of avalanche. We covered the earthquakes already. And in Iceland, you have had an activation because the Blue Lagoon has erupted. So Blue Lagoon volcanic erupted in Iceland, and we know that Kilauea and Spur are still active in the United States. And let's see, flooding in Australia. Yes, heartbreaking floods swamp Australians' cattle country. I did see some images of that on X, and yes, they are experiencing some severe flooding. They have not recovered from the cyclone. In a tsunami 45 miles southeast of King Simon Island in Alaska. I did not know about that one. Let's see. Samoa, they had a power outage, sending them into a state of emergency. An ice storm has caused power outages in slick roads in northern Michigan. We talked about that. A mining accident in Spain. And let's see. That's old. I was talking about space incidents. We've added that now. Let's see. We talked about the plane crash in the U.S. and in Iran. 14 killed, 46 injured after a bus overturned in southeast Iran. That's horrible. Brazil, 11 killed in traffic accidents in northeast Brazil. Ecuador, 7 dead in bus rollovers. Nigeria, 9 die in a lone crash. Okay. Residents have luckily escaped after a bus smashed into a Sydney house. All right. In a railway accident, 3 dead, 4 injured as privately owned goods trains collided head on. All right. That's new. In Thailand, 36 tourists and crew caught in a huge blast off the coast of Thailand. And we talked about the Germany cruise ship that was disabled and collided with a barge. And the cyclone, we talked about that. And that we've talked about. We've talked about all the weather, the rain. They say that several parts of the United States could have hail as large as apples over the next 3 days. Whew, that's not going to be fun. So keep yourself weather aware. That's the events across the country. We'll look at the GDAX, which is the Global Disaster Alert and Coordination Center's map, and it always highlights just the most recent things. And we talk about earthquakes in Indonesia, Tonga, and then there's the cyclone Courtney, floods in Italy and the United States, volcanoes in Iceland, and then those are the most recent events. We've covered most of the others. I'll pull this up real quick before we summon my buddy Ross here. In fact, I'll just go ahead and get the link to copy in case he's listening and send it to him. Here we go. Just in case he's listening and he's wanting to come over for the last few minutes. So we talk about, this is from the New England FireNet. We're just going to go quickly because we're running out of time here. We've got about 15 minutes left. Amesbury, Mass. They had a large fire. What is this one? They had a pursuit in Amesbury, Mass, and they do not know where the bad guy got off to after high-speed pursuit. All right. North Providence, Rhode Island, fire on the third floor of a 3-story occupancy. In Exeter, New Hampshire, an armed suspect at large off of the railroad tracks. Suspect is at large, unknown, possibly a second suspect in custody. Firearms have been recovered. Schools have been locked down. Amesbury, Mass. That was the high-speed pursuit we talked about. Waltham, Mass. You had an updated on the box. It was, well, it just moved while I was reading it. Where'd it go? Let's see. A pursuit. No, that's the other one. That's an Amesbury. Waltham. They had an update on the box alarm. Command reports they're shutting down exterior lines and resuming interior attack. And that is on a I guess it was multi-family dwelling with large pockets of heavy fire. I need to find out some more if I can read that. Boston, we talked about the pedestrian struck earlier in the breaking news. So it went to a third and a fourth alarm for fire in a 2.5-story duplex. Okay, that's what it was. All right, so interior reports heavy fire on the third floor. They requested help. They had heavy fire in the basement. So it must have been a balloon type construction. Those are pretty notorious in the Northeast. Let's see, an outdoor fire in Harvard, Mass. Extended to a large area of brush. They called for help. And American Legion Highway reports fire on floor 2 of a large 3-story brick apartment, requesting assistance. In Groton, Connecticut, Gold Star Highway for missing suspect. I think it was for a missing person. I'm not sure if they found that person. Let's see. We're getting into the overnight hours in Pennsylvania. Conshohocken, Schuylkill Expressway. Fire department on scene reporting a motor vehicle with entrapment, extrication in progress. Queens overnight. They reported a fire on Baywater Avenue that was extinguished. All right. I pulled this up from the Australian. This was from yesterday. Terrifying moments when a cement truck burst into flames on the Monash Highway in Melbourne. Terrifying footage has emerged of the moment a truck cabin burst into flames on a major Melbourne highway Monday afternoon. Image published by Nine show the cabin of the cement truck engulfed in flames, as well of the ash and rubble that remained once firefighters extinguished the blaze. Fire Rescue Victoria responded to the incident just before 3 and found the vehicle alight with large amounts of smoke over the road. Crews worked quickly to contain the fire before making the scene safe, according to a spokesman. The driver managed to evacuate the cabin with no injuries reported. Ambulance Victoria confirmed no transport was provided. The Environmental Protection Agency was authority. I'm sorry, it's not agency. The Environmental Protection Authority was also notified due to the spill of diesel near a surrounding waterway. The scene was under control just before 3 p.m. local Melbourne time yesterday. However, the incident caused major congestion on the Monash Freeway. 3 of the 5 outbound lanes were closed at Wargle Road, with traffic reaching Torick Road along, adding 65 minutes to the regular journey, according to Vic Traffic. Authorities confirmed to the Victoria Police and Victoria Roadways that they were called for management. They said the Victoria Police spokesperson said the blaze was being treated as not suspicious. So that was yesterday in Melbourne. We'll look real quickly at Sky Vector here. We've got about 10 minutes left, and we'll pull this up. We see significant turbulence off of the coast of the Carolinas, extending over into Bermuda and down off the southern coast of Florida. And we see there are several restrictions still. Remember, they had 2 space launches yesterday from Kennedy, and down in Key Largo, or not Key Largo, Mar-a-Lago, we see the normal one. And then they have for the VIP. The First Lady must be there, is why it's larger than it normally is. That must be why that is. Let's see. I had a sports show in Florida. We zoom up to DC, and it's pretty much the same. They don't have extended or done anything. They did expend it to an outer band, but nothing more than routine. Um, Looks like it's in South. That's probably those are probably for over the wildfire in the Appalachians, and let's see, down in Mobile, some type of hazard along the coastline. They've secured the airwaves. A lot of times, the fire department will also secure airwaves. Security effective. This is for us. This is right along the border. This is exactly even with the border. They have a no-fly zone for security reasons right along the border. So, and they have no unmanned aviation. Guardians Padres game there on the coast. They've got a no-fly zone over. And what is this here? And for security reasons, and for an air sports show in Nevada, some type of hazard over there. Space operations. Where would that be? That would, oh well, I would imagine this is probably Area 51 if I had to guess. Space operations. Interesting. Salt Lake City. Yeah, I'm going to guess that's got something to do with Area 51. Salt Lake City area is space operations. It's got is it? No, that's Roswell. No, I don't know. All right, so that's in Salt Lake. Space operations. We'll have to see if something pops up on the news about that. Where is this? This is down into Beale Air Force Base. That doesn't surprise me that there's a restriction down there. What do we have? Space operations over? That's Salt Lake City. I don't know. Maybe Jurgs can tell us. That's interesting. And we zoom around, and what do we see up here? Baseball game, Tigers at Mariners. You see that we're seeing a lot of that for the baseball games. Security, I'm going to guess this is right along the border. And Grand Forks International, for some reason, off of Grand Forks, they have some secured air right along the Canadian coast. And they have eliminated no drone activity south of there or north of there as well. Don't tell me this is space operations. Space operations here too. What the heck? Well, this might, no, this isn't when, I don't know, where is this? Let's zoom in. Let's find out. Boston. They're having space operations in Boston. That makes no sense. Why are they having space operations in Boston? So I don't know. All right. So we'll zoom out and let's see. Baseball game, Royals at Brewers. Baseball games, Twins at White Sox. And what is this from baseball game? Angels at Cardinals. Yeah, we're going to see a lot of that popping up. And baseball game, Rangers at Reds. And I'm going to imagine this is probably security along the coastline. I don't know for what, though, exactly. What is this? This is Charleston over to the ocean. They have security, secure area. A lot of times you'll see them put them up along the coastline when they're sub-hunting. And let's look and see if there's any space operations in Alaska. And they have changed it. It's no longer space operations. It is security operations. All right. There you go. So there is the NOTAMs. You can go get a full list online at the FAA, but this is skyvector.com. Shows you a pretty good overview of where the secure airways, air areas are, air protected areas in the United States. Good Lord, if I could talk. All right, we got 5 more minutes here. And the last thing I will show you, and this is a daily thing, and I swear they could almost, well, no, it's not as bad today. They could almost just repeat the same thing and put it on cycle. This is Bitdefender. This is real-time cyber threat analysis. And as usual, we see the United States is under attack from what looks to be, that's probably the Russian Federation over into Asia. Down under, you're only having some spam with an occasional infection attack. But the United States is being bombarded, even by South America. Look down there, Venezuela is nailing us today. They're not normally in on the game. So, yeah, we see that the red are actual attacks. The orangish yellow are infections, and the white are spam. And we see that We saw there was a couple of light up there in Australia, but for the most part, it's all about hitting the U.S. on this. So, yeah, you can find this at Bitdefender, the cyber threat real time map. And if you can read it quick enough, you can see the attack country is Brazil. But from the target country, United States, from Israel, from Switzerland, from Canada. Let's see. Brazil. There's a lot coming from Brazil right now. Israel. Why is Israel attacking us? Israel's Brazil. There's this attack within the United States on the United States, from France into the United States. If you can read them quick enough, Panama into the United States. Some of them aren't a surprise, but others plainly are. So, all right, well, in our last few minutes here, I'd like to thank everybody at Radio X for allowing us on. We appreciate that. We also would like to thank Yergs over at yergsradio.com and Rainbow Radio for allowing us to tickle your ears. We encourage you to please come over to the Paranormal Guys. Guys is spelled with a Z. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so you'll know whenever we go live. We do a show Monday through Friday from 1 p.m. Eastern till 3 p.m. for 2 hours, where I'm a hot, bloated bag of wind, and I talk about a lot of wind, weather, current events, and emergency service activity. And to update, there have been no recent deaths, but hold on, wait a minute. I do have one story that was sent in to me. Let me pull that up real quick. Man accused. Can I pull that over here? There we go. I can pull this over here. Man accused of shooting at deputy in Clay County, according to troopers. This comes to us from Cheyenne in Clay County, West Virginia. A man has been arrested. An investigation is underway in Clay County after he allegedly opened fire at Nicholas County deputies Sunday afternoon, troopers said. The incident occurred around 2:30 in the Lismore community, where Nicholas County deputy was doing a follow-up on a separate case, according to the state patrol. Joshua Leaf Carter, 32, reportedly shot at the deputy, who did not return fire. He's well disciplined. Troopers said Carver was charged with attempted murder. Deputy said he initially went to the area as part of a stolen vehicle investigation, was walking towards Carver's camper when they were confronted by aggressive dogs. Okay, well, I wouldn't finish the article before I subscribed to anything. Where were we? According to a criminal complaint filed in Clay County, court records said the deputy returned his vehicle at the bottom of the driveway to announce his presence over a loudspeaker and turned on his cruiser lights. That's when Carver fired 3 shots in direction of the deputy. The deputy said he then backed his vehicle out of the driveway and onto the roadway. Several law enforcement officers arrived, and they created a perimeter around his camper. He was then ordered to come out and taken into custody without incident. Troopers said during the complaint, they found spent shell casing outside the camper, and they found a handgun with maximum capacity of 12 shots that had 9 unspent rounds. In an interview with West Virginia State Police, Carver admitted to firing 3 shots in an attempt to dissuade the stray dogs from attacking his livestock. Carver said he knew the deputy was present at the time, but did not believe he was there for him. All right, so that comes to you from Cheyenne in West Virginia. All right, everybody, I encourage you, come over to find us here at the Paranormal Guys. You can find us Monday through Friday live from 1 to 3 Eastern Standard Time. And you can also find me Tuesdays and Thursdays from noon till 2, spinning music and records on the Thin Line Rock Station. I also have a paranormal show. I have 2 Bigfoot guests Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. It will be on Yergs Radio, Rainbow Radio. You can check it out there. It will be on replay overnight in the islands of Florida. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Ross. Everybody have a great night. Stay tuned. Ross is coming right up, and you will have his show. Until tomorrow, I'll see you guys soon. Everybody have a great day. Bye now. Got to push button here.